Good afternoon and welcome to everybody joining this webinar live now and anybody who is viewing it in a recorded version of it. You're very welcome. Today, we're going to specifically talk about Fulbright and focus area of science, engineering and technology. And we all know that can be quite a broad area. Coming from a science technology background myself, I'm quite interested in this aspect of the program, but I'm very interested obviously in the application across all of the areas of our program. And today we're going to be joined by Fulbright alum, Professor Owen Whelan, at the end of my conversation about the actual awards. So as I said, today we're talking about Fulbright and we're talking about Fulbright for scientists, for engineers and for people involved in technology. So you don't have to be the scientist or the engineer, and hopefully that becomes obvious as we progress through the presentation today. Just one comment to say that we also at the Commission, we run the program Education USA. We act as a portal for information for those who want to study in the United States. So you could be postgraduate or undergraduate. A lot of the times our people who contact us are actually at leaving cert stage and looking to go to the United States. But if anybody on this call or knows of somebody who requires advice, obviously you can come onto our website and go to the Education USA part of that. So getting back to Fulbright then, well, the Fulbright program took its name from a Senator Fulbright, J. William Fulbright. In the 1940s, post-Second World War, the program was set up. The rationale for setting it up was just the horrible things that people had done to each other. And the view was that this had happened because people did not view each other as people, but as something else, those over there. And Senator Fulbright felt that if you spend time in somebody's country and understand and live with them and breathe the same air and walk in their shoes, then you will start seeing them as the people that they are and that they're no different from you and everybody else around you. And his view was that in terms of that engagement, it could be best done through academia, where a lot of the people coming through that can be influencers in their own country and can spread the experience of the cultural engagement and the stepping into somebody else's shoes. So when the program was set up, it's set up in 1946. The expectation was that there might be up to 8 countries join it. There have been up to 180 countries joining it. So that's obviously been very, very successful over a period of decades. In 1957, Ireland joined the program and we ran the Fulbright program through a different department. And in 1991, there was agreement and a statutory instrument was set up to support the agreement between the United States and the USA, and the Commission was set up then to run and to adhere to this agreement. So the Commission's primary focus is the Ireland-United States Commission for Educational Exchange, and we run the Fulbright program. So we're often known as the Fulbright Commission. We do run a number of other programs as well. This program is supported by the Irish Department of Foreign Affairs and by the US Department of State. It's funded by both of those, and we have a series of sponsors, and we will look to the sponsors through our awards as we progress through this presentation. The majority of funding does actually come from Irish funds, and it's well supported in the United States and across the United States. It's a very well-known program. So what is Fulbright about? What are the opportunities? Who are we looking for? Easiest way to describe it is we're looking for passionate and accomplished people. And passionate and accomplished can come in a myriad of forms, but really it's for people who are engaged, who want to progress their knowledge, want to progress what they are passionate about, who have an interest in developing their career, developing other the areas that they're going to work in. So when we talk about the different parts of who might be eligible, we talk about students. Typically, that's postgraduate students. When we talk about scholars, typically that are people who have their PhD already. We do engage with artists, we do engage with teachers, and we do engage with professionals. And professionals we define as those with 5 years or more relevant professional experience. And we say that we're focused on all disciplines, and we really, really are. All disciplines means every discipline that you could possibly consider. And your opportunities to research or study or teach or lecture in the United States The program also operates in the other direction. So we do have Americans who come to Ireland under all the same eligibilities and expectations. What do the awards provide? Well, the obvious one would be monetary grant. There's also visa administration. We provide an accident and emergency insurance. And I think the biggest part of the program really is the ongoing cultural and professional programming. So it's an opportunity to engage while you're in the States with Fulbright and with other Fulbrighters that you might get an opportunity to meet with over some sort of a program event that's happening either in the institution you're in or as supported by the Fulbright program in the United States. And again, a big part of the program, it's the ongoing support and your links to a global network of Fulbright alum. As you said, up to 180 countries, people coming from Ireland, people from the US, not just over 1 year, but over 70 odd years. So there's a big alumni associated with the Fulbright program. And it's a very engaged alumni. So that's part of what the program is about. It can be an experience of a lifetime. You can step in and you can step out of the program as you wish. There's obviously a global recognition of the program. And I think anybody here who's going to the States will really appreciate how well received and recognized it is in the United States. It is very much a Fulbright family. So you are dealing with people either on the program or subsequently as alum. You're dealing with people who are very engaged in the same way that you were, people who are passionate, people who are willing to take those steps forward, who are willing to use the program and use the stepping stones. So you're very much joining global peers of people who are at the same level or perhaps even beyond you, but certainly in terms of interests, they're in other areas probably. In many of the cases, there'll be areas that you don't typically deal with, but yet the passion remains the same. What you can do on your Fulbright is obviously the work you perceive you're going to do, but actually the cultural engagement and the sheer fun and enjoyment aspect are big parts of the program. It's probably one of the unique aspects of the program is there's an expectation that you will go and experience the United States wherever you are. You will experience people, you will experience what the US has to offer you, and you will say yes to almost everything. So the application process, which is the awards program is open at the moment, and your application process then will be, first of all, the basic level is to establish your eligibility. We are terribly inclusive, but obviously there are levels of eligibility that you also need to look at. Some are generic and some are specific to different awards. But the Irish Awards are open to Irish citizens and also to EU citizens if the latter have been living in Ireland for 5 years or more. Very important that you demonstrate a strong rationale for why you're going to and where you're going to in the United States. So why you're going to the United States and why not another country? And where in the United States you're going to. It should make sense. It should absolutely make sense. It should not be about a big brand name that you come across that you only see that, because the US has thousands of very valid institutions that may be very well suited to what you want to do. So why Fulbright? Why should it be the Fulbright program? Why not another program? And why Fulbright specifically for you? What is it that you are bringing and what is it that you need from Fulbright? If you think that you might want to also in the future get a long-term residency visa in the United States, then you will first have had to adhere to the 2-year home rule. So you'll have to have lived in Ireland for 2 years prior to applying for that visa. You can't be a dual US and Irish citizen. You can't be living in the United States at the time of your applications, and you cannot have a recent extensive experience of studying or living in the United States. You know, if you have any queries about that, the easiest thing is probably to reach out to us in the Commission at awards@fulbright.ie. So if you have a specific query around that, we can certainly address that. Everybody's experience can be quite different, so there's no generic answer there. The timeline, as I said, currently the awards are open. They will close at the end of October. In November, December, they will be reviewed by peers across Ireland, across the US and across the world. If you are going to be progressing to the next stage, then you will be called to interview, which will be probably the end of January to early February. And post that stage, then we would expect to be in a position to make an offer by the beginning of March. In terms of what you might want to do, You don't have to follow the order here, but certainly these are important things to do. And I think understanding what award you might want to choose, where you want to go, they're going to be important. Hopefully today will be a little bit of a help in potentially in choosing the award that you might want to do if you haven't already, or it might clarify the information about what it means to be a Fulbrighter. In terms of the award categories, well, there are a number of different awards, and they will, to some extent, depend on where you're at in your at this stage. If you're a postgraduate and you're involved in research, or if you want to seek a postgraduate degree, well, then you'll be classified as an Irish student. So you would look to the Irish Student Awards. If you already have your PhD, or if you already have 5 years or more relevant professional experience, well, then you're going to be categorized under the Scholar Awards. The Irish Tech Impact Awards are a Scholar Award, and again, that's for academic and for professionals. And the focus in ICT, but as we'll talk about shortly, you don't have to be the person with the IT experience. You might be just looking to engage with ICT. And the last award mentioned then is for the Fulbright Schumann Awards. They're currently open. They run on a different time scale. You would go to fulbright.be, Belgium, or just look up Fulbright Schumann and you will identify those awards. But they tend to be larger scale areas of interest between the US and between the EU. So you certainly have a look at that. As I said, fulbright.be. Talking a little bit more about the Irish Student and Scholar Awards, when I mentioned earlier that we were talking about all disciplines, it really does mean all disciplines. So I would imagine for everybody listening on the call here, this if you're a student or you're a scholar, obviously you identify that. But beyond that, then there's a home for your research or for your study under, or your teaching under the disciplines, the All Disciplines Award. So we have economists, we have judges, we have biotechnologists, we have physicists, chemists, we have engineers, people from all disciplines apply to this particular award. So you have to have, as I mentioned before, you have to have a PhD or 5 years relevant experience if you want to go for a scholar and professional award. You should establish your affiliation with the US institution you want to go to. We'll talk more about that in a minute. It's for a minimum of 3 months and a maximum of 12 months. That's for the scholars and professionals. If you are a student, well, then you are applying to do research, or you're looking for to do a postgraduate degree in the United States. You should establish the affiliation yourself, or you can apply for a couple of the courses that we will talk about as we mentioned different awards here. It's for a minimum of 4 months and a maximum of 12 months. We do not fund a second or third or fourth year. So Fulbright funding is only for the first year, but it does present an opportunity to seek additional funding through the institution or through the other supports that you can identify whilst you're on your award. I mentioned the Fulbright Tech Impact Award. They're quite unusual. They are a scholar award, but it's for scholars or professionals in any discipline that uses ICT or needs to use it or brings ICT. So you must have a PhD or 5 years relevant professional experience. That's the same for Scholar Awards. It is based on non-commercial research. It's for a minimum of 2 weeks and a maximum of 3 months duration. Although we do set a recommendation to say maybe 1 month, just purely to embed yourself, with an expectation as well that you will be able to continue the engagement over a longer period of time. In terms of who you should be bringing that, you can be the person who has ICT or bringing a system, and you're bringing that to colleagues in the States. Or the other side is that you've identified the colleagues in the States that have a system that would be very, very useful for you to engage with. So your area could be from arts and humanities, but you want to look at areas where people have ICT, or you could be engineering, but non-ICT, and you want to bring that and identify some areas, researchers or groups that have research of interest to you. So we do allow a lot of flexibility on that, and I think being a little bit intelligent with that can really position that well for you. And because it's only 2 weeks to 3 months, it actually it typically suits a lot of professionals as well. I think we'll probably spent most of the time talking about that program there. You should be in affiliation with a recognized educational institute, research institute. If you have something that's a little bit more difficult, different, should I say, like a company, depending on the research they're doing and who they're engaged with, and as long as you're engaged in pre-commercial research, so it has to be pre-commercial or non-commercial research. So certainly, if you have any queries about who the host might be, please do reach out to us at awards@fulbright.ie. So they have a very special award then under the Tech Impact. So the timescales are slightly different, but it's certainly less than the 3 months minimum for a typical scholar award. And this is with Boston Security at their cybersecurity program that it's cybersecurity policy and governance at Boston College. It's been an excellent course. It's been very, very interesting. And people who've taken it up have come from industry, they've come from Irish industry and Irish academia, but it's a tremendous place to meet and develop and engage and bring your input to the program. They're very engaged with the Irish Fulbrighters who've gone there over the years. So if you're interested in cybersecurity, for instance, I would say this is potentially an excellent award. If you don't want to go to Boston College, you can still apply through any of the all-discipline program, or you could apply through the normal Tech Impact Award. This just happens to be a very well set program, and they're very engaged with the Fulbrighters who typically gone over there. We have some agreed awards as well, they're called associated awards. So you apply under the all disciplines, but you can apply to go to Florida Polytechnic University, and they're very focused in getting Fulbrighters to come who are interested in the STEM. So an area of STEM is certainly of interest to them. They will put together a package to host you as best possible, and the fact that you're coming over on a Fulbright would mean that you will be very well received and treated and lauded, and I think well promoted over there. So certainly give this it's certainly one to take a real look at. Obviously they have some specific areas that you can dig a little bit deeper into. The information on our website will give you a little bit more about that program, but it's certainly well worth looking at. And I have to say that it's probably undersubscribed in recent years. Another equivalent program then is the University of Southern California, and they're specifically looking people to do a master's or a PhD. If you're looking to do a master's, well, then they will give a partial tuition waiver. If you're going to do a PhD, they'll give full financial support. So they're looking for, in particular, engineering or computer science. So there are specific areas that you might be interested in, but they mentioned their biomedical engineering, civil engineering, computer science, chemical engineering, electrical engineering. So I think there's quite a scope there for hopefully for some of the people on this award. And again, it's reasonably undersubscribed. So I would certainly say to take a look at this program. You will be very well received. You're going in as a Fulbrighter. They're obviously engaged with the program. They've already worked with us to say we will give the best possible support we can to any of the Fulbrighters who apply to this. The other side is that once you have reached out to them, and even if you don't follow through or you're not successful with Fulbright, you have actually opened the door for all of these awards that you could consider that there's an opportunity to potentially continue with them. Beyond the specific awards, I would say that we have a lot of sponsored awards, and you see areas like EPA or the Health Research Board or Geological Survey of Ireland, and the NUI Awards and Teagasc. All of those have science and engineering components to it as well. So potentially people on the call today or watching this will consider that possibly what they have could fit under any of those programs again. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think identify where the best fit might be. The other thing about engaging with sponsors is that they will also engage with you. So you're not just working with Fulbright, but you're now working with an engaged sponsor, a state agency in many cases in Ireland. So there's a strong value in that as well. So certainly you don't have to fit yourself into a very specific box. There are lots of opportunities, and the hint there, be strategy aware and be innovative, really comes to mind. So hopefully people on the call are will see where they could potentially go, and maybe this conversation allows you to consider where you might better fit or where you might be quite innovative in your fit. A full list of awards then is here. I'm not going to go through all of them. I think some of them we just specifically identified. The NUI Scholar Award for early career postdocs. That again doesn't have to be in a specific discipline. So it can be in the areas we're talking about today. The Tech Impact Award and the Tech Impact Cybersecurity Award, we've spoken about those, the Florida Polytechnic University and the University of Southern California Award. They're very focused, obviously, on STEM and engineering. So you can certainly consider those. And I mentioned some of the broader programs that are supported awards that you could apply for here. So certainly there's a lot of opportunity. And all of this then, as I said, the all disciplines covers all disciplines anyway. So you have plenty of opportunity there. Application requirements, well then we want your personal information and your CV, and then there's a Fulbright statement and a personal statement wrapped together, and that's very much us finding out about you, and it's something that we're going to keep talking about. But for a lot of people, and I come from a science background myself, but you know, you're very focused on the work you're going to do, the papers you're going to achieve, potentially the intellectual property that you're going to develop, or the technology that you're going to develop from that. And that's all good, and that will all be part of your application. But actually, the part that we rarely get a chance to talk about is ourselves. And this is the part that you sometimes need to take a step back from and maybe work with others and question with others. How do you do that? It's a great opportunity, actually, where we don't normally get that. Then you talk about your project statement. That's going to be obviously the components that makes it up. You will need 3 recommenders. You will have submitted a copy of your passport. And then if you are particularly at a scholar level, the expectation was that you can submit a letter of affiliation. If you can't, we can still work with that. Students might not be in a position to do that yet, particularly if they're applying for a postgraduate taught course and they're not going to be possibly accepted. They haven't been accepted, or the process hasn't happened yet. But you certainly try and identify, or at least identify for your submission where you're going to go. When we get to the level of interview, then we would certainly want to have a better view, and hopefully you would have your letter of, certainly for a scholar, you would have your letter of affiliation at that stage. We would strongly hope that you would have a letter of affiliation as you're submitting, because that certainly gives the reviewers and potential future interviewers a better view of where you're going to go, why you need to go there, and what it is you're going to do. Finding a host, I guess it's a simple comment to say that in many senses, you know, it's a big country. It has thousands of potential hosts, and most of them will know about Fulbright. So in a sense, you're very much pushing an open door. Most of them will actually, if they haven't gotten a Fulbright award before, it will be on their bucket list, and we're quite impressed that you want to go there. You know, and identifying where you want to go, please do look at who's of interest in your area, who's writing, who's working in an area of interest to you. Where do you think you can get the best value? Again, diversity across the United States is an important part. And I think some of the best experiences people get for the work they want to do, for the experience they've had, and actually for their lives as they develop, have come in, not necessarily in the well-marketed and well-known places, but beyond that, where it's really made sense for them. So again, we always say, please do look across the wider United States. In terms of preparing your application, the stuff that you know, the research objectives, they're easy. They're stuff you do on a regular basis. Your rationale for going to states should be strong. Why couldn't it be another country? Why couldn't it be Germany or Austria or Switzerland, or pick another country? Explain your objectives and your expected result. And what impact is a little bit more, but what impact will this have on the discipline, the area you're working in, but also on the research that you want to do, and your career, and how is that going to develop? You know, so it does come back to impact, a broad sense of impact. It's not just you're going to get the work done. That'll be great. We have an expectation that will happen. But what will you do with it? Where will you go? Where will it benefit? The work you're going to do, where and how will that benefit? Your Fulbright statement, I've mentioned this already. It really is about you personally. Please tell us about you. If you get to interview, you're going to be asked questions about you as well. So please do that thinking in advance. You know, look at your personal part and your professional ambitions, your motivations, interests, what you hope to achieve in the United States and upon your return. You know, and I think for us to understand personally what that means to you. That's very, very important. Bearing in mind that Fulbright is at its heart a cultural engagement program. The role and the benefit of being a Fulbrighter, I think talk to Fulbrighters, research a little bit, understand what that is about. It's about being an ambassador for yourself, for your institution, for your discipline, for your country, being an ambassador in the United States and being an ambassador when you're back home and being a Fulbrighter ambassador. Key thing as well, when you're putting your your Fulbright statement, your personal statement, don't rehash your study objectives or your CV. We will have that. This is going to be more about you and how you can express yourself. So that hint there in the Fulbright program, we invest in people. It's a very strong hint. So we really need to understand who the person is behind the work. When you submit, then the first stage will be review. The review will obviously look at your academic record or the route you've taken to get there. And there's no single route that's the best route. We're interested in people. Does where you want to go make sense? Does what you want to do make sense? Is it achievable in the time? All of those good things. Also, we will look a little bit at that stage about the potential for leadership or the evidence of leadership that you've shown, particularly if you're a scholar. How you might engage, where we're trying to assess the value of the program and what it will bring to you and how you will use it. If you get moved on to interview, it very much flips around to where the majority of the focus becomes then about the cultural engagement, your experience, what you want to achieve, where you will go, how much you've thought about this, how much you've thought about where you want to go, not just the academic placement, but how do you embed yourself in the United States culture. So all of those parts then will be reviewed through review and interview. So there's a little bit more focus on the technical aspects at review and a lot more focus then on the personal aspects at the interview stage. We're very much interested in people across the board. And again, this comes down to us, for you telling us who you are across all sorts of realms, who you are. We're interested in where you come from, what institution you come from, your background, all of the parts that make you are very, very important. And you'll see throughout Fulbright as well, there's a great opportunity for expression of different, aspects of your personality and where they matter. Ultimately, we compress all of that down, and wherever you come from and wherever you're going to, we fundamentally put it under the banner that you become a Fulbrighter and become you become part of the Fulbright family. Where you can go, there are lots of resources. You can certainly troll through our website and find a lot of information. A key one is where you have an opportunity to talk to a Fulbrighter, either talk to an alum or even more importantly, if you have an alum ambassador on your campus, please engage with them. They're there for a reason. They won't tell you how to apply, but they certainly can give you some guidance and advice and just tell you a bit about their experience as well. Where you have any technical questions, please come to us. But if you just have high-level conversations, please go to talk to other Fulbrighters, including the campus ambassadors. You'll find as well that to some extent your own institution will have some supports and some guidance about the Fulbright program. I mentioned briefly as well about the Schumann Awards. As I said, they're on a different timescale, but it's so they opened on in September 23. If you go to fulbrightschumann.eu or fulbright.be, you will get more information on that. Just one caveat: if you do apply for that, can you also please advise us that you have applied for that award? So if we know, then we can track that as well. If you're an undergraduate, we will be opening early at the applications will open later this month, but it will be for a single undergraduate to go on what's called a SUSI, so the study of the US Institute for a student for European student leader. So there's an opportunity to go to the Michigan State University to undergo a 5-year academic program. So it's possibly not relevant to here, but if you know or if you're working with any undergraduates who might be interested, then please send them to Fulbright and look up the Undergraduate Awards, the SUSI Undergraduate Award. So coming to the end of discussion about the application process, and I'm sure people will have questions, and there's a lot of information that you can certainly find. But a couple of key points. Congratulations. You're part of the 90% of successful awardees who are attended a Fulbright roadshow or a webinar. So only 10% of successful awardees who haven't attended seem to get through. 50% of those who started, a Fulbright award, but don't complete it, didn't actually look for any support. So I think that makes a point that reaching out, asking questions, it's a very strong, it'll help you to keep you on track, keep you connected with applying for the award, will help you rather than getting to a point saying, I don't know where to go from here. Do reach out. There are plenty of supports, including the commission. We'll put a list now on the next slide, but there's a great opportunity to reach out and get help. And Fulbrighters themselves are highly engaged and very, very helpful. There are no downsides in applying for this award. It's really only your time, and it is time very well spent. The information that you might put together for this application is the same information that you could use if you're going to apply for another job, if you're applying in your own institution, if you're trying to decide what are your next steps personally or career-wise or even research-wise, or where do you need to engage, where's an opportunity to connect with other researchers. All of that is stuff that at some level we should all be doing probably all the time, but certainly this forces you to spend that time well. So it's a very good application process in that sense, because it really does force you to think about not just about the work, but also about the engagement, what you want to get from it and where you want to go to. Generally, you're pushing an open door in the US. It's quite an easy cold call. It's not really a cold call. It's probably a warm call when you're reaching out to hosts or academics or others, institutions in the United States. You explain to them who you are and what you want to do, that you're applying for a Fulbright. Then you can talk to them where you're coming from. But once you've said you're applying for Fulbright, they will get it. They'll probably be a little bit impressed that you're actually applying for a Fulbright award. And the last thing is, this is a great opportunity to join a Fulbright family. It's not just here you go, funding. Did you have a good time? Great, move on. There's a great opportunity to remain engaged with the Commission, with the Fulbright program globally, to remain connected with other Fulbrighters. There's a very strong alum in Ireland and also around the world in each country. And the United States is a big, big alum program as well. So it's a great opportunity to join a family of like-minded people who are engaged and passionate. So in terms of your next steps, you have loads of opportunities of awards. Hopefully you can see that, narrow that down to what your opportunity should be. You can talk to a Fulbrighter is a key thing. I think it's always a great way. It's a great place to start if you haven't started. Even if you have started and you haven't spoken to a Fulbrighter, make sure you create some space and time for yourself to be able to do that. Give yourself a little bit of time just to round this up. Obviously, we have a lot of resources on Fulbright.ie, and there's all the usual social media accounts that you can find a lot. We have a lot of videos and webinars created over the years, particularly in the last number of years on our YouTube channel, Fulbright Ireland. So there is oceans and great places for you to find the information. If there's something unusual, you can obviously reach out to awards@fulbright.ie. But please do take the opportunity to go through our website to identify the basics, because a lot of that will be already there. So I mentioned the talk to a Fulbrighter. So it's great then that I can use it as a segue to actually introduce a living, breathing Fulbrighter, and that's Professor Owen Whelan. And Owen, if you wanted to switch on your camera, great, you have that there. Aoife, then I think we'll probably transfer control to you. So thanks very much for coming today.
Can you hear me there, Dara? Am I good to go?
You're good to go. Thanks, Owen.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a million, Dara. So good afternoon, everyone. As Dara said, I'm Owen Whelan from the University of Galway, and I was lucky enough to be awarded a Tech Impact Fulbright Scholarship to spend the summer of this year out in the University of Colorado in Boulder, which was an absolutely fantastic experience, not just for myself, but my family came as well. For us all, it was a life-changing moment, I'd have to say. So I'd certainly encourage everyone to apply. Wish you the best of luck in that. So it certainly had a major impact on myself. So I guess I'm in a unique position to give you some advice in your application because I applied a few years ago and was not successful and learned from that experience and applied again and was successful the second time around. So I'm going to share some insights about what I learned from not being successful to being successful, and hopefully there will be some use to you. So first of all, just where I went to the University of Colorado in Boulder, why I chose to go there. My area, I'm interested in how people are using digital technology and what are the psychological impacts of that. And I came across kind of a news report a few years ago out of the University of Colorado at Boulder, where they're running an outreach program for teenagers over the summer to help them use smartphones, and social media in a sustainable manner. So I was really intrigued by that and did some investigating and found the institute at the university that came out of. And yeah, I just approached the head of the institute, Mark Ross, and mentioned, as Dara said, that I'm interested in applying for a Fulbright. Could I base myself in your institute for a period of time? And it started with an email, and then we had a Zoom call, I believe, after. And yeah, they're intrigued. Once you mentioned Fulbright, they want to feel very that it's prestigious that you're going to apply to their institute. They kind of have this view that it's the Ivy League universities is what Fulbright is, and so they were certainly intrigued from that point of view. So, and yeah, I suppose they were curious as well what my demands would be. And once I mentioned that all I need is a desk and a Wi-Fi connection and I'm ready to go, that was certainly positive as well. So keep your demands low, I guess, would be the one of the tips I would give as well. So, yeah, so just to reiterate some of Dara's points as well. So I think you really need a valid reason for visiting the US. So there's lots of funding programs out there that give you funding to do various different things. The Fulbright is specifically go to America to conduct your research there. So, if you're into hard sciences, maybe it's a little bit more of an easier argument. You need to use a particular piece of equipment, a small hadron collider or something. It's only based in this university, and obviously that makes sense that you need to go there. If you're into softer sciences like myself, a little bit more difficult maybe to make that argument. That if you're gathering data through surveys and interviews, well, potentially you can do those from anywhere with the technology that we have nowadays. So you really need to have a valid reason why you need to be on the ground in the US at this particular institution. So my own story, the research project that I was doing, the university were running a camp essentially over the summer for teenagers and helping them to use technology in a sustainable way. So I needed to be on the ground, kind of an ethnography approach to see what they were doing, the results of that. So, I made the argument that I need to be there in order to gather the data. So certainly think about that aspect as well. I think you really need to think about the societal impact of what your research is likely to be and articulate that very clearly in your application. So, are you focusing on a disadvantaged group that you're going to help that disadvantaged group? For example, one of the ladies who was successful when I applied as well, she was doing research on the Native American community and looking at learnings from that community and bringing it back to the traveller community in Ireland. So, it was a very clear benefit and impact of that. Are you developing a new health intervention, for example? Is your research going to inform policy? So you need to be very clear about what the benefit is going to be and how that benefit is going to happen. So don't just say, oh, we're going to inform a new governmental policy. I think you need to be very clear about how the steps involved in actually doing that. Yeah, so what exactly are you going to bring back to Ireland as well in terms of your research? How is Ireland Inc. essentially going to benefit from your research? So that's something you really need to get across as well. Yeah, the reason I chose the University of Boulder, the institute was the Atlas Institute, is that they were when I'm in a business school and the way a business school things are very structured. We have, very follow processes to do a lot of things. And I found that a little bit constraining. The Atlas Institute, their approach was unconventional approaches to major problems. So they weren't a business school. I specifically chose something, an institute that wasn't a business school, because they're very multidisciplinary. They approach things, problems in a very unconventional manner. And that's what I wanted to expose myself to, that I wouldn't get in my own institute or maybe other business schools that I would have gone to. So that was, I had a very clear reason why I wanted to go and what I was going to get it from it and how that's going to benefit. That type of thinking was going to benefit my career as well. So that's certainly something that you should think about as well when you're looking at institutes to apply to. Dara talked about the importance of your own personal development, and the Fulbright want to see who you are and what you as a person are going to gain as well. And I certainly reiterate the importance of that. It's not just talk, it's certainly something that Fulbright do want to see in your application and in your interview process as well. So that is very important. And it's a great opportunity for you as well to develop those things. So my own story in that front, outside of work and family, I'm very interested in endurance sports, particularly cycling. And I coach some athletes as well. And in Boulder, in Colorado, that's a mecca for endurance sports. So I had the opportunity to go to visit the Olympic track cycling team and their training headquarters in Colorado Springs. So through a friend of a friend, I got in touch with the coaching staff there. So I was able to go down and visit those guys at the track in Colorado Springs and actually learn about the coaching approaches and how they work with athletes. And that was a great thrill for me that I can learn myself and then bring back and help out some of the athletes that I'm coaching as well. So that personal development side of things is hugely important as well. As I mentioned earlier, my family, wife, and 2 young kids came along with us as well, and we specifically use it as an opportunity, not to go to Disneyland and those kind of theme parks and all that. So we did a bit of a road trip and went to visit Native American reservations and go to South Dakota, where they have the Crazy Horse Memorial, and learn a bit about the real history of the US as well. That it certainly opened up my eyes, and it's something I have a keen interest in now, and reading some books on Native American history. So so again, I wouldn't have got that opportunity only for the Fulbright. So the last point I would make is, when you're writing your application, and even in your interview, if you get that far as well, the people who are reviewing your application and interviewing you, they're not going to be experts in your area. So you really need to think about, in lay person's terms, what is your research project and who's going to benefit from it. So think about it in very simple language, not in the normal academies that we write our papers in and other funding proposals. So that's really important as well. And, even just giving your proposal to a boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, spouse, whoever it might be, someone who's not an academic in your area, and ask them to read this, and does it make sense to them? And if it doesn't, well, then that's your problem that you need to fix. So that's be writing very plain English, simple. What's my project? How am I going to do it? Who's going to benefit from it? And keep it simple. I think they were the main points that I know we're on a time pressure, so they were the main points I wanted to get across. And if anyone wants to contact me and drop me an email, I'm more than happy to give some advice at another time, or if there's questions later on, I'm happy to answer those.
Oh, and thanks a million for that. I have to say you did lots of that right as well. Like, I always love to hear people brought their family, because that's a little bit different. It's not about the work, it's about having your family and yourself. And great to hear that you had other experiences, because that's a big part. And actually, time and time again, when we talk to Irish or American Fulbrighters, they less talk about the work they did and more about the experience that they had. And that's actually job done from our point of view. Just a little clarification, the technical reviewers will be experts in your field, but the interviewers won't be. So it's always a good point. And actually, I've been hammering this for years. I know an inspector saying the same thing, is that, be able to explain it in simpler terms, even to your complex peers. Start, the KISS principle, keep it simple, always applies. So I certainly would kind of second that, to say it's always good to be able to do that. At the interview, you might be asked to discuss it as though you had met somebody at a bus stop in the States, and they're wondering, well, who are you? Where are you from? Why are you here? what are you doing? You know, be able to give those answers in a simple way. That's always a good thing. That actually opens up all sorts of doors for conversations rather than putting people off or putting them aside. You actually can engage with them as well. Something else you mentioned as well, just about you reapplying. You know, that's always great to hear, because sometimes you don't get it right, and maybe you didn't have enough time, or you didn't really know what it was you wanted to do, or you didn't consider all of the elements of the application and think, you know what, I need to flesh this out. And maybe you didn't engage with anybody or with enough people. So there are lots of reasons like that. And if anybody, you know, is considering applying for a Fulbright Award, and then either after a little bit of consideration or as they go down the path and suddenly realize, you know what, it's not the right time for me. I need to have, you know, I need to think about this. I need to decide when I want to go. I need to pick a better time. That's perfectly fine. That's a great opportunity that you've already come to that decision, and now you know that better. So if you want to apply in future years, it's still going to be there. It's still open. So it doesn't have to be now. If the time is right, then absolutely go for it. You know, and I think Owen would say to you, he'd be delighted he applied. There's no reason not to. He applied twice and was successful. He learned from the first time. So there really is little reason not to do it. It's just your time. And if you're not successful, that's okay. There's no shame at all. It's a great program that a lot of people apply to. It's a competitive program. At the same time, you know, if you look through the presentation today, you know, hopefully you get some hints for maybe where opportunities are, you know, in particular awards that you could consider, if that makes sense for you. And somebody has a question. Sorry, I'm just going to drop into one here. If you apply for 6 months for the award, but get the work done in less time, for example, 4 months, is it okay to come home then? Well, no, I'd flip it the other way around and say that, you know, if you give yourself a little bit more time around the award and not aim to just getting it top and tail. I mean, what Fulbright's not about. It's not about sending you to a lab or to a museum or to 2 years, you know, or teach, where you go and you say, okay, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to get 4 months or 6 months work here. I'm going to get it all done. I'm going to get a couple of papers and I'm going to go home. That's not Fulbright. That's another program that will fund that. We're actually more about the engagement, where you had the experience, what you did, the connections you made. I mean, the work will get done. We know that. You're there on a mission to get the work done, but it's actually the other components of that. So really, you should know how long you want for this program. So the short answer is we wouldn't expect that you get it done in 6 months. We would expect that you take the 6 months and that you've kind of timed it appropriately. Hope that helps. Now, as often happens at this stage, people are just in the process of kicking off their application, so they don't necessarily have a lot of questions. As I said, we have a lot of information on the website. We have a lot on our YouTube channel. So you can certainly look through that and find a lot of the information. If you have any questions for us, you can reach out to awards@fulbright.ie. If you go onto our website and you can click just to start your application, that will just come back to us. We will see what awards you're looking for, and we will send you on all the information you need to kick off your award. So there's very little. There's no real overhead in pressing the button of starting your award. Even if you ultimately don't go ahead with it, you can certainly read through, see what you need to do, and then decide, is this something that you want to do in the immediate future, or is it something that a better time will come about. So we're not there to waste your time, and you know, it's really going to be the best use of your time as well. So even considering that you're not going to do an award, you know, particularly once you've had a little more of a look at the awards and looked at maybe the guidelines and everything, you can do it. But that's a good point. You might decide not this year, but it could be the next year. But a lot of people do. They take the steps. So there's a reason you're thinking possibly now. You'll get the information, go through it, assess what award might be most suited for you, and start your process and start talking to people. Talk to Fulbrighters like Owen, because there is a wide open door. You know, there's a great sense of camaraderie and family. So the people who've got Fulbright Awards genuinely want other people to have Fulbright Awards as well. So I don't think you will find that a difficult door to push open to ask the questions. So I think we won't need to belabor the conversation much longer. Just remains me to thank Professor Owen Whelan again. Owen, thank you very much for your time. Glad you had a good experience and your family had a good experience and you got to do many different things. And thanks to Aoife for organising this as well. So Owen, we'll leave it at that. And we'll see you on the flip side at the next Fulbright events. Take care and thanks to everybody on the call and best of luck. Hope to see many applications from the STEM area, particularly as that's kind of where I'd come from. Okay, take care and thanks. Goodbye.